Hi everyone, today I'm going to be walking you through the Doctor Doom outfit and taking you for an inside peek in how that was made. So let's just jump right on in. So what I'm going to be talking about right now is the torso piece. The whole thing is made out of foam, and then the fabric pieces were made to hold all of the main armor pieces together. It's made out of 1/2-inch EVA foam, and the accent pieces are done with 2mm EVA foam. And then there are a few pieces like the collar and the front detail that are 1/4-inch EVA foam. All of the pieces were cut out from paper templates and then heat formed, and then all of them glued together with contact cement. I always like to use contact cement rather than hot glue, mainly because it's a lot stronger and it works really well when you're putting together complex curves. Once the main pieces were put together, I used what's called Swedish tracing paper to map out and lay down the templates for where I wanted all of the details to go. Those pieces were cut out of the 2mm foam and then contact cemented right on top of the main armor piece. Once I had all the detail pieces attached, what I wanted to do then was round off all the corners. And the way I did that was with my handy-dandy Dremel. You can use either a sanding or a grinding attachment, and then just go around all the just to give them a nice rounded edge so that it wasn't that sharp corner. And then it also helps to smooth out any like little, cutting imperfections that you had. Next, I wanted to go into all of my detail pieces and create all of the beveled lines. So what I did for these is, in order to make sure that when I was crossing over pieces, like this part right here, I just used regular blue painter's tape. So I just, pulled off pieces of painter's tape, laid it down like this to create the lines that I want. And once I had that done, I just took a Sharpie marker and drew across the edge of the tape. So I did that on all of the pieces, and once I had them all marked out with Sharpie and the tape off, I just took my X-Acto knife. So what I did was just run down one side of that detail line at an angle very carefully, just making a really shallow cut. And then just going down the other side to create that beveled line. For the rivet pieces, I just used a grinding wheel on a Dremel, and all you do is you just go straight down on top of the spot where you want the rivet to be, and when you take it off, it makes this nice little detail. So once all the detail lines were carved in, and I had all of those things the way that I wanted them to be, the next step was I needed to put in all the holes for the lights. Before I could do any sealing or finishing on the pieces, I needed to decide where I wanted the lights to be, and I needed to go ahead and punch the holes all the way through the foam armor. I used a grommet punch, but you could really use any kind of a round tool. You could even take a piece of copper pipe and sand down the end so that it's sharp. Just anything that's, nice and sharp that's going to get through that foam. So once I had all the armor pieces were assembled, all of the detail lines were on, and the holes punched, then it was time to do some heat sealing across the whole piece. So I just use a regular heat gun that I got at Home Depot. Be careful, it gets really, really hot. And what you want to do is just kind of very carefully go over the whole piece and close in all of those, close down all the edges. It'll get rid of all of the sanding marks. It'll round everything out. Any cut lines that you have for small detail lines, the foam will actually expand around those. So it just really gives you a nice finish before you start adding your Plasti Dip. So once I had the three main pieces together, I needed to build the fabric connecting piece that was going to hold it all together and hold it all on me. So this connects the chest, the abs, and the codpiece, and you can see where the belt goes in this open section right here. So this is made with gray headliner foam, and then I used Super 77 to stick it to the back of the silver spandex. And then I just went through it and stitched in all of my detail lines, then edged all of the pieces with the same silver fabric. And once that was done, I was able to finish all of the foam pieces, spray them with Plasti Dip, prime them, paint them, and I was able to glue them to the fabric part. And you can see here where it's glued to the underside of the chest, and then the abs are glued on, and then the cod piece is glued onto the bottom. So once I had the whole torso piece together, then it was time to put the lights in. I used 3mm green LED lights from a company called Evan Designs, and they sell a lot of pieces for model train sets and things like that. So what I did with the lights was I took 2mm foam, I set the lights into those, and then I just put them into the holes and glued them down. Once they were glued in from the back, then I went into each of the holes and I filled in the hole with hot glue. So I just took the hot glue gun and I just squirted some glue into the hole so that it covered the bulb. It doesn't damage the bulbs, but it does give a nice diffusion to the light, and it just anchors them much more securely. So once I did that, and you can see here all of the wiring in the back. So once they were all installed, I just wired all the lights onto a coin battery power supply with a switch. So I can run the whole piece off one switch. So you've got the lights in the neck, the ones across the chest, and the ones in the abs. And that is the Dr. Doom torso. So the shoulders were done the same way as the torso pieces. 1/2-inch heat-formed EVA foam, glued those together, and then did the details, rounded off the edges, and carved in all of the small detail lines. The clips that you see right here are what are used to attach it to the chest piece. Like before, I made sure before I did anything else, I punched out the holes and got ready to put the lights in. And the shoulders have 2 lights each, one on each side. So the next piece after the shoulders were the biceps. And for the biceps, they were done basically in one solid piece. Then I created a piece of elastic that goes on the inside of the bicep to hold it together. So these pieces were just heat formed and then rolled around. So when you're doing a piece that has this much of a curve on it, I would recommend waiting until after you've got it rounded to put your detail pieces on. Otherwise, they'll try to pull against the curve. And the biceps, of course, also have lights in them as well. There's one in the front and then one off to the side. And on the finished costume, the shoulder and the bicep go together just like this. And so then the next piece is the forearm, and this was done pretty much the same way. It's in 3 pieces, a front piece, and then the back, and then there's a side piece. And then they were all glued together and heat formed, and then I added in the details, carved in the pieces, and then there's the silver strap that goes on the inside of the arm. You can also see on the front here, it's lower at that part and higher in the back for the elbow. And this piece has 2 lights in it. It's got one up towards the side and then one in the front. So then when you put the entire arm together, it goes roughly something like this. So the last part of the arm was the hand, and that was a little tricky. I took this silver spandex costume glove and I put it on a form, and then I went through and I traced out all of my plates, all the shapes that I wanted, and I cut them all out and dremeled them out to round off the edges. I created all of the rivets, and I made all of the little detail pieces, the knuckles, cut in all of the details for the individual finger sections, and then dremeled all of those. They were all individually heat formed so that the details would show up, and that they would also be rounded to go on the fingers, and then they were all glued to the glove. I left the underside of the hand open so that it was easier to get it on and off, and also so that I could hold things. The whole thing was plasti dipped and painted all as one piece, but it held on to that glove pretty nicely. And this is how the glove fits into the forearm. You can see the forearm overlaps it a little bit, and then there's a sleeve underneath that covers the wrist. And so next is the thigh. So here's the thigh piece. The thigh is in 3 pieces. It's got a front section and a back section, and then this larger middle section. And all of these pieces were preheat formed and then glued together. The main difference between the thighs and the rest of the pieces of the costume is I didn't put any lights on these pieces because they're pretty well covered by the soft parts of the costume. So to go around the inside of the thigh, I didn't want it to be too bulky, so I made this kind of detailed padded strip that goes around the inside of the leg. And then this clip up here, it attaches to a belt that fits underneath the torso. So the thighs have their own belt that hold them up, that's separate from the torso. So they aren't putting strain on any other parts of the costume. For the boots, I started out as a base with some boots from one of my other costumes, and they fit really well, and I like them, so I really didn't want to destroy them with this costume, so I decided to make the lower legs and the boots that could fit over these and be worn on top of them. So what I did was I took the boot and I made a pattern off of it using plastic wrap and masking tape. I cut that apart, and then I used that to build a shoe piece that could fit over the top of my existing boot. So this is made using gray head liner foam that was then laminated to the silver fabric, just like the torso piece. And then I was able to map out all of these other pieces that go across the toe, the upper part, and the heel. And you can see there's quite a bit of flexibility there. And the elastic goes underneath the heel. So when I put the boot piece together, and the rest of it fits quite nicely right over the top of my existing boot. Got a lot of toe movement, and it's very close. What I needed to do next was the shin, and I decided to do a silver padded piece for the calf and the back of the shin, mainly just to give myself some movement and to reduce a little bit of the weight and the bulk of the boots. It has some 2mm EVA foam structured pieces inside of it, and it also has some elastic that goes around the front. Then the next piece to do was create the EVA foam front half of the shin. So this piece was created the same way as all the rest of the EVA foam pieces, and you can see that there are 2 lights on the shin, one in the front and one off to the side. And then with the shin piece completed, the whole thing fits over the top of my existing boot. And once it's fully assembled, the boot opens up to fit on the inside, and the whole thing comes together, and there's Dr. Doom's boot. So now, if we move on to the head, what we have is a main helmet part and a faceplate. The main helmet piece is made out of a 6-piece base foam helmet that was heat formed and then glued together. And then all of the detail pieces were carved and cut out of foam, individually heat formed and glued on from there. Then all of the detail lines were carved in, and the whole thing was plasti dipped and painted. So the template for the base of the helmet is one that I developed on my Ed head from Monster Makers. I covered him in plastic wrap and masking tape, drew out what I wanted the template to be, then cut it off and created the paper versions. I put some rare earth magnets onto the templates of the helmet, and then some Velcro strips onto the sides. So the faceplate was also heat formed, and the faceplate is actually in 3 separate pieces. So you've got the main face area here, and then the nose, and then at the bottom, the chin. The grating inside the mouth is actually made from the plastic, like the plastic netting that is put around small trees to protect them. And then I had some protective goggles that had some green lenses, so I just popped the lenses out and then dremeled the plastic lenses down. And so to put it on, I just put the helmet on first, and then snap the magnets together at the temples, and then just rotate the faceplate down and attach the Velcro strips at the sides. Okay, the next pieces I want to talk about are the belt and the, I guess, buckles for the cape. So the belt buckle and the buckles for the cape are actually 3D printed. And the way they're made is there are actually 2 layers that are printed. One of them is this kind of translucent layer, which is the white layer, and then there's an opaque layer that is the layer that's been painted the coppery green. And then when they're seated together, it creates a single shape that lights can be embedded into the back of. And when they're turned on, the lights will diffuse through the translucent pieces and create the lit up design that you see. So when you turn them on, it really glows with a very diffused green light. I also want to give a shout out at this point to Jordan's Ironic Armory, who designed the 3D files based on my sketches and printed out the belt buckles and the cape buckles. Thank you very much, Jordan. The belt itself is made out of an embossed faux leather that I found that I really liked, and did some paint effects on to really bring out the texture. And then I've got these kind of coppery faux leather details that I added on to make this this kind of dimensional effect. And then I found these very cool studs that I wanted to use on different elements of the costume. And they're a very nice complement to the coppery faux leather, as well as the paint on the buckles for both the cape and the belt. So there are several soft elements to this costume, and one of them is this kind of partial skirt. This piece goes around the waist, and it actually connects right on either side of the abs in the front, and then the belt goes into the belt loops. And so what this piece is meant to do is to give the effect of Dr. Doom's tunic, which I largely got rid of in favor of doing all of the armor pieces. So this piece is made out of a dark green linen, and then it is lined with a kind of a darker green taffeta. And then I edged the entire piece all the way around with this copper faux, thin faux leather, which is the same copper that was used on the belt. And then possibly one of the most iconic pieces of Dr. Doom is his cloak. So I made the hood on this kind of vest/harness type piece, which has a lot of the same details from the belt and also matches up with the partial skirt. It's got the same dark green linen, it's got the same copper faux leather edging, and it's got the same studs. It also has these wing pieces that go over the shoulders, and these were made by taking 2mm craft foam, laminating fabric to the front and the back, and then edging all around the piece with the copper faux leather. And these pieces were then sewn down to the top of the vest where they needed to be. So this wing piece serves several purposes. One, it covers the gap in the armor between the torso piece and the shoulders. Second, it references, again, that tunic and that sleeve that I decided not to do to redesign. And third, it provides some support to the cape. So for the hood, I decided instead of attaching the hood to the cape, I'd put it on this vest piece so that the cape supported itself and the hood and the vest were one solid piece and wouldn't shift around. I was really concerned about getting the shape right. So what I ended up with was this kind of very simple design that is in two pieces with this kind of gusset on the top. And so this gave me a good shape. It gives me a nice kind of flounce across the shoulders at the bottom of the face, but it's not big and floppy and oversized. It's made out of the dark green linen, lined with the olive green taffeta, and then bound all around with the copper faux leather. And you can see there are holes here in the vest, and this is where it actually attaches to the chest piece. The cape itself goes over the top of the vest and underneath the hood. And the way it works is it actually has a foam piece that goes inside and supports it over the shoulders. So this is the top side that goes inside of it like this. And then this is the bottom side. And then what it does is it actually goes over the shoulders and attaches to the chest. And it gives the cape a nice shape and a nice support over the shoulders. A kind of an elevated look over the shoulder, sort of like the Thor cape. And the cape is also made with this kind of permanent pleat that brings it back over the top of the shoulders and keeps it in place. It is actually permanently draped across the back of the shoulder, but on the inside, it has some turn under so that when you're moving in it, it actually has some flair and some volume, but it's good because I don't have to keep flipping the cape back over my shoulder all the time. And you'll see these Velcro circles with the hole in them. And this is where everything connects up to the chest piece. And then those 3D printed buckles attach to the Velcro circles. So when it's put together, it works like this. The foam piece actually goes inside the cape and fits into these sleeves all the way to the end. And the holes will match up all the way through. It goes over the shoulders like this, and then it actually screws into the chest piece. And with the vest underneath it, the hood just falls over the top. And that is how Dr. Doom's cape works. So now that you've had a tour of all of the separate pieces, here is a little time lapse to show you how they all fit together. hope you've enjoyed this inside look at Dr. Doom, and stay tuned for more videos coming soon from SMP Designs.